Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is 4 Paws in a Book. I make bookish videos over here on my little corner of the internet, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the books that I read in the month of September. Every month I tell myself I'm going to do a vlog style wrap up, and then every month I forget about 3 or 4 days in. This month was no exception. I really tried to do a vlog style wrap up and it just got away from me way too quickly. So here we are to talk about 21 books.
That's insane, right?
This month was great for me in terms of trying to read down my physical TBR. I think 15 of the 21 books were books that I had on my shelves prior to the beginning of the month. And then I bought a couple that I read for rom-comathon and things like that. But overall, it was a great month for getting down my TBR. What it was not a great month for was reading fantastic books. Some of them were great. In fact, some of these will make my best books of the year. At least one will make my best books of the year. So that's good. But I also had some real duds. If you watched my rom-comathon vlog, you will know.
Okay, just because it's not complicated doesn't mean it's bad.
It also doesn't mean it's good.
In September, I read a total of 6,837 pages, which feels like a lot, but I have even more planned for October. Thoughts and prayers. I read 18 books targeted at an adult audience and 3 books targeted at a YA audience. As far as star ratings are concerned, I did have an average of 3.63, so like, in terms of averages, we were pretty good, but I had 3 2 stars, I had 1 2.5 star, I had 4 3 stars, so it felt very mid. I had 2 3.5 stars, I had 4 4 stars, 2 4.5 stars, and 4 5 stars, which is fantastic. I also had 1 book that I didn't rate. As far as genres, I had 1 contemporary, 1 fantasy, which feels low. It is low. It's very low for me. 1 historical fiction, 2 horror, 1 nonfiction, which is the book that I didn't rate because I don't usually like rating nonfiction, 9 romance, which makes sense because rom-comathon was a thing, 3 sci-fi, and 3 thrillers. If you are new here to my wrap-ups, I talk about the books from the one that I liked the least to the one that I liked most. I will actually start with the book that I didn't rate, and then we will move on to the ratings, and then we will finish off with my favorite book of the month. So the book that I did not rate was Tastemakers, and this was about 7 immigrant women who revolutionized food in America, and it talks about their origins and how they were able to bring their cultural traditions over and kind of make American food what it is today. And not just American food, but the way that Americans treat food and the way that Americans view food and the culinary world as a whole. And I thought this was really interesting. It's basically 7 essays or 7 short stories of women that have come over from overseas and were culinary masterminds, culinary geniuses in their field, and I really enjoyed this. I work in food, so this was something that was like near and dear to my heart, and I really enjoyed it. Do I think this was perfect? No. Like, if I was rating it, it'd be like 3.5 or a 4 probably. Like, I enjoyed what it was trying to do, but it was interesting the women that they chose, because some of them were like immigrated from France, and I feel like that's just not exactly the same difficulties that someone who's not white would face. So I don't know. It was still good. Like, for what it was good. But it wasn't a perfect book. Moving on to my 2-star reads. All 3 of them happened during rom-comathon, so you have recently heard me rant about it. I will link that vlog up above. But the first one was The Prospect by Lyssa Kay Adams. This was a novella. It was a baseball romance about a guy who is trying to be drafted into the MLB. He's like in an affiliate league or a minor league. Then a woman who is getting on a cooking show, and like she was a caterer for the team, which is how they met. But then like she gets invited to this cooking show and wins a scholarship, and like it's a whole thing, right? This book was terrible in so many ways. And I think the thing with romance is that when you don't believe that 2 characters should be together, the book never works, right? The book's not gonna work if you don't think that the 2 main characters should be together. And that's just how it is. And this was definitely the case with this book. There was a part in the 3rd act where like he's not answering a phone call from the baseball team because he wants to prove to her that he can focus on her, and like,
the fuck?
Anyways, I hated it. You can hear my full rant. My other two books, there are also rants and also kind of follow the same thing of these two characters should not be together. So first up, let's talk about Do You Take This Man by Denise Williams. This is supposed to be a hate to love, and it's about a woman who is a badass lawyer, and she also is a wedding officiant, which is funny because she's a divorce lawyer. It's a whole thing.
It's best not to question it.
And then someone who is an assistant as a like wedding coordinator. He's kind of like helping his, I think, cousin out who is the wedding coordinator. That's how these two meet. And upon first meet, this man quite literally tells her to smile more. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be wanting to sleep with a man who told me to smile more. And the funny thing is when like you're in his POV when he says it, and he says something or he thinks something like, oh, my sister would have my head for this or something like that, and I'm like, then why did you say it? I don't know. And then like literally 75 pages later, she is like, oh, do you want to sleep together? No, you deserve better than that. Anyway, this was a whole hot mess of a book, and I'm really bummed because I really liked The Fastest Way to Fall, which was her other book from last year, I believe. But yeah, this one was a huge miss for me. My last 2-star read was Sinner by Sierra Simone. This was a big bummer for me because this was a 5-star prediction. I will have a vlog coming up with my 5-star predictions or reading my 5-star predictions, and this one was not it for sure. This is about a woman who is going to become a nun, but before she does, she is told by her mother superior that she needs to go out and explore the world more, which is fine, but whatever. So she goes to her brother's best friend, who she has had a crush on since she was a kid, and is like, well, I want to sleep with you because you're safe, da 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 da. And that's cool, right? That's fine. The problem with this book became really fetishized, right? She tried to combat it by saying stuff like, oh, the concept of virginity is such a stupid misogynistic concept, and like it's just put in place by men for men, and it's stupid. And if we would have just gone with that, I would have been totally for it. If we would have just honed in on that. But instead, because we are solely in his POV, he continues like, she's so young, she's so inexperienced, and they just continue to remind the reader that she is in fact a virgin, and there's a big age gap, and this is not right, this is blah blah blah. And it was really trying to force the forbidden romance or the taboo romance, and it never worked for me, and it really gave me the ick. So did not love this one.
This is a nightmare.
I will continue on. I will read the third one, which is Saint. That one I believe is queer, but this was a miss for me, and I think you could probably skip it. Next up, my 2.5-star read was also kind of a disappointment because I really loved the first one in the series, but that is Defect by Nino Cipri. This is the second book in the Littenverse, which is basically if IKEA had portal universes, and this follows another character in this universe. And this one went haywire, and I feel like had we had maybe a full-length novel to explore what was going on in this, it might have been better. But just in a novella format, it was so quick, so short, and just very, very out there, to the point where I really didn't understand what was going on, and I didn't really care. I didn't like this character as much as I liked the characters in the first one, and I would have rather just seen a continuation of those characters rather than this guy, because he was just like your typical white guy, and I didn't love it. So it was a big bummer, a disappointment for sure. Moving on to my 3-star reads, the first one was Me, Moth by Amber McBride. This is a YA contemporary novel told in verse, which I tend to really love those. I think when done well, these books are transformative and they can be really powerful. But unfortunately for this one, it felt really overwritten, and it felt like the author wasn't really sure what she was doing. This is a debut, and you can tell, unfortunately. But I think if you like YA contemporary, you might enjoy this. This one just felt so angsty, and I think when you add in the like book written in verse, it becomes even more angsty, because you can do that. You can be angsty when you're doing poetry, right? That's the whole point. So for me, this was like very much a book that existed, and I read it. It was on my NetGalley TBR, and I found the audiobook on Hoopla, and I was trying to find a bunch of library books that I could read for a battle-a-thon. If you like books in verse, especially YA contemporary, specifically like Elizabeth Acevedo, you may enjoy this. My next 3-star read was Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This is the last book that I had to read for Riley Sager. I've now read his entire backlist, and this book was a tale of 2 parts. I actually really enjoyed the first like 65-70% of this book, and I was really confused why people were giving it such low low ratings and they hate on this book and they like, you know, really didn't like it. I had not read any of the reviews. I was just like, that's weird. Like, this is actually good. It's fun, it's engaging, it was a quick read, and I was here for it. And then the end happened. And like, I can't spoil it, but decisions were made that were stupid ass decisions.
I recognize the council has made a decision, but given that it's a stupid ass decision, I've elected to ignore it.
And I questioned the sanity of the main character, of the author, of anyone who actually did like this book, and or liked the ending specifically, because it made no sense. It made no sense. No one should have made that decision. No one in their right mind. So, I can't obviously tell you what happened because it would spoil the entire book, but let's just say, I promise you, no woman is that naive or stupid. That's why this book got 3 stars, because I really liked the first part. And if we would have just continued on that trajectory, we would have enjoyed it. But like, the ending was 1 star. So that's why it's a low 3 star. My next 3-star read is quite literally a book that exists, and I read it. I actually have no recollection of it. It was that boring, that mid. That's Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris.
Okay. Boring.
I have no thoughts or opinions on this book. The characters were really boring, really flat, and like didn't make interesting choices in the slightest. This is definitely a book where the characters needed therapy, and the relationships in this book are kind of weird. Kind of weird. No, they're beyond kind of weird. They're really weird.
Hello. Which one of us are you?
So for that reason, it got a 3-star. I couldn't get past the whole like marrying the sister of the woman that you were married to or were with, and she disappeared. It was a whole thing. Okay, I will say that the ending, the twist was really interesting and kind of out of left field. I kind of saw, like, I was like, oh, that would be really interesting if that did happen, and then that is how it happened. So like, I liked the ending of this, but the main character is just an absolutely boring, average Wonder Bread white man, and I really couldn't stand him. So it's a quick read if you need a quick thriller. I was in a thriller kick, wanted to read a bunch of them, so that's what I did. Lastly, my final 3-star was Dark Succession by Katie Robert. This is the first book in like her Mafia series, and I don't think I'm going to continue on with this series. Normally I like her dark romances, but this one was just kind of like boring in a sense, because it is about like these 2 families that are like kind of warring over each other or over territory, and I don't know, I was bored for most of it. The smut was good, but I think that she has much better books. And I read this book right after reading Cruel Seduction, which I really, really liked, which will come here in a minute. And so this one just, you could tell, like, because this is really just a reprint of an old book. She just put a new title and got a new cover for it. And you can tell, like, this is an older book, this is her older writing, and she's definitely improved since then. So this is probably one that I'm going to pass on. I'm not going to continue on with the series. But if you like mafia romances, this might be a book for you. I just think that trope of romance is not necessarily my favorite. Moving on to my 3.5-star reads. The first one was The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. This is a like sci-fi dystopian portal universe kind of book. It takes place right in the middle of COVID, and you can kind of tell like this is a COVID book. It was written during COVID, and it's exactly what it tried to be. For some reason, I was just going in thinking it was going to have much higher stakes than it actually was, whereas this book is like actually trying to be funny and comedic. And I get it, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I talked about this a little bit more in my Scatagorathon vlog, so I'll link it up above. But like, I enjoyed this. I will read more from John Scalzi. In fact, I just got Starter Villain, his newest one, in the Aardvark box this month, so excited about that one. But this book is about a man who was kind of an Uber Eats DoorDash kind of driver. He gets fired, and then he goes and talks to his acquaintance, a friend, and he's like, well, I have a job for you. It's dangerous. You have to take all of these like vaccines and stuff like that, because you're gonna be going and dealing with large animals. He didn't tell you what they are. And I love the part when they're like flying over, they've like gone through this like portal window, and they fly over, and he goes, is that a dragon? And he goes, well, kind of. So anyways, this book is about basically the window to the portal universe kind of closing, and the veil is kind of, the kaiju are able to come into the other world, to the real, like our world, and so they're trying to prevent that from happening. And like, that feels like it should be life and death stakes. It should be very high, but it just like was trying to be comedic in a way. And I was kind of finding that as we were going along, I was getting a little bit bored. It was getting a little bit redundant. Our POV character has no clue what's going on. They don't know. They're not an expert. They are there to be a body, essentially. And I think in some ways, like at the beginning of the book, that really worked because you kind of like got to find out things along with the character. But I wanted to find out more. I wanted to know more than what this character was learning and what they were finding out. And so that became frustrating for me. You know, my other 3.5-star read also struggled with world building, and that was Gideon the Nth by Tamsin Muir.
Will someone please explain to me what the hell is going on?
This was the last book that I read for September, but also probably the book that I remember the least about. And that's more because I never really knew what was going on, less of that I forgot what was going on. This book is funny, it's witty, I love these characters. The skeletons are amazing, the dialogue, the banter, it's wonderful. But I have zero clue about the politics of this world, the different houses, what each thing means, like how the magic system works. I don't know what's going on in this book through the entire thing. There is like a trial in this kind of like Hunger Games-esque, which I really enjoy. I love a good game, a good trial in a fantasy book. So really enjoyed that, but like that part didn't come in until like 60-70%. So that was a struggle. I do think that the writing style worked for me in this, in the fact that it wasn't like purple prosy, but it was descriptive enough when it came to like the setting and like the room that they were in, or the like, you know, the character surroundings. I just wanted a little bit more of the world building in terms of the politics and the way that the different houses connect and what they mean to each other, because it would be like one is in like this eternal feud with another house, and I want to know why, right? Like maybe I need a prequel to this book. I don't know. I'm hoping that we like find out more as we go along. I am reading Harrow the Ninth in October, so we'll see. We'll see. Moving on to my 4-star reads, I had 4 of them. The first one is Bloodwater Paint by Joy McCullough. This is actually a book that I started during Amazing Readathon and didn't get it finished, so I finished it up at the beginning of September. This is another book that's told in verse. And this is a historical fiction about a girl who is essentially raped and then is like forced to marry her rapist, and she doesn't want to, and she wants to like take him to trial. Of course, we are in Rome in 1610, so like that's not really well known. We don't really do that. So this is a very feminist story, and it definitely was powerful and it packed a punch. This has a lot of trigger warnings, so be aware of that. But I think this book was really, really well done. And this is a book where the poetry and the words on the page really amplified the story rather than just creating more angst. In this book, the poetry made the story that much more powerful. The main character is also an artist. She's a painter. There's such an artistic style of word choice in here, and I think it was just done brilliantly. So even though I'm not like a historical fiction fan, I really enjoyed this one. The next 2 4-star reads I did talk about during my rom-comathon vlog. The first one was Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. This is a Gen X relationship or a romance, and this was so cute. This is about a woman who is 48 and a guy who is 50, 51, something like that. He's in his 50s. And they meet on this video game server. They are like playing the same guild together. He thinks that she's a grandma because like of the way that she talks, and she thinks that he's in his 20s, and then come to find out they're actually like live in the same town and also are much closer in age, and it's really cute. It's adorable. Like, he's a golden retriever, she's grumpy.
You really got nothing else better to do.
Rude.
It's a good time. I'm not sure that I necessarily related to the characters as much as I do in most romances, because obviously like they're in their 40s, 50s. But that's okay. I don't need to relate to every character. I think this book did what it really needed to do. There's also demi-rep in here and bisexual representation. He does not realize, like he thinks he has a problem because he's never really wanted to have sex before. I've never really wanted to, like he's never really felt an attraction to people before, and like finds out at 50 that he is demi, and that's really cool. It's representation you don't see very often in books. It is happening more often, but I highly, highly recommend you pick this book up. Then we have Fly With Me by Andy Burke. This is a queer sapphic romance with fake dating. It was a ton of fun. This is an author's debut. You can tell there is some messy drama in this that like wasn't necessary, but this is about a woman who is a pilot and then another woman who is on said plane, and is a nurse, and she has to deal with a medical event. Someone is starting to have an allergic reaction on the plane, and it ends up going viral on TikTok because like apparently the guy like played a Mickey Mouse at Disney World. So it kind of goes viral. They end up fake dating because the woman who is the pilot wants to become a captain, and she keeps getting passed over by men because she works in a misogynistic field, and she thinks that if she is dating the woman who put the airline on the map, that they will look at her as a captain. I don't know. It feels funny. It's, you know, fake dating. It's not always realistic.
Oh my goodness. Don't tell me the variant ambushed and killed another team of Minutemen. And stole their reset charge as well.
There is a lot of messy drama in this book, specifically regarding one of the main character's ex, who is like trying to be the crazy ex-girlfriend and like plays that character very well, into her detriment, I guess. So that was probably the reason why it got 4 stars instead of 5. But overall, I had a really good time with this book, and I will read more from this author. My last 4-star read was Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadman. Listen, I love this series. This series is fantastic. It's very well done. I will say that I think that this is leaning more into a fantasy that has a romantic subplot into it rather than being a straight up fantasy romance, but that's neither here nor there. The first, I think third, maybe even close to half of this book, the two main characters are not together, but my god, when they get together, they are together, and it is hot, it is steamy, it is sexy. It's one of those like, I haven't seen you in so long, and so now I can't keep my hands off of you, and like, chef's kiss. There is a war going on in this. There's another POV that we get in this one, which I really enjoyed, and the ending of this book was phenomenal. So I will say at the beginning of this book, I wasn't necessarily as invested in the story, but once we got to the end, my god, I wanted to drop everything else on my TBR and continue reading this, even though the third book is a literal brick. Overall, I had a fantastic time with this. I buddy read this with Shay over at Shay Geeks Out, and we're going to be buddy reading the third one as well in October. Moving on to my 4.5-star reads. The first one is Cruel Seduction by Katie Robert. This is the newest in the Dark Olympus series. I just realized there is some very not safe for work art on the front of this. I listened to it on audio, so I didn't know. Wow. Okay, I'm not going to show it because I'd like to stay monetized. But anyways, there is an entire chapter 3 podcast that I will link down in the description below where Bethany and Izzy and Shay and I all talked about this book, and it was fantastic. It was a great time. This is probably my second favorite of all of them. And this is a really interesting look at poly relationships that are not like a closed circle, if that makes sense. Because there's a lot of different types of polyamory, a lot of different ways you can do polyamory, and in Wicked Beauty, Katie has like a triad. There's 3 people, they're all in a relationship together, and in this one, it's open. So these relationships are kind of messy, but they're kind of beautiful all at the same time. It's also a really good look at how even platonic relationships really like fall into your worldview of what relationships look like. That sentence didn't make sense, but you know what I'm talking about.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
No. Terrible metaphor.
Damn, I thought I had something there.
Because there's a really beautiful depiction of a platonic relationship, of a relationship that they tried to make not platonic, and they realized that they work better not in a romantic relationship. As it did in Radiant Sin, this book continues to open up the macro plot of this world, and we're really starting to see the politics and the ever-changing world and the like just messiness of everything that is going on. I'm really upset that I have to wait until like January to read the next book, because that's when the Midnight Ruin comes out. But I really love this series, and if you've read previous books from Katie Robert and didn't enjoy it because it didn't really have a plot, I highly recommend this book or this series in general. The first 2 books are mostly smut and a little bit of plot, but as we go further on into the series, there's a lot of plot happening, there's a lot of politics happening, so I still would recommend these. Next up, we have Dark Corners by Megan Golden, and I also talked about this one in my Scatagorathon vlog, so if you want my in-depth real-time reactions, check those out there. I loved this book. This book was fantastic. It was like watching a Law & Order SVU episode. I had such a good time with this. I think that it went much darker, much deeper than The Night Swim did. This is essentially about, it continues to be about Rachel, who is the person who's on the podcast. And instead of having like a trial that she's talking about on the podcast, she's actually brought into an investigation because somebody who is a convicted felon is wants to talk to her about something, and the FBI thinks that if he talks to her, then he will give up more information and possibly be put away for longer than what he is in for currently. This book is dark, it's messed up, and there's a lot of things going on in this, so definitely check the trigger warnings for it. My only problem, and the only reason this book did not get a 5-star, is why do thrillers feel like they need a romance? This book feels like Megan read Finley Donovan and was like, well, the romance works in that one, let me try to put it in this book. And it felt so rushed, so unnecessary, kind of like a publisher was like, wouldn't it be cool if Rachel had a boyfriend? And then we like tried to fit it in like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit, and it made me mad. So that's why it's getting 4.5 stars. It wasn't necessary. Not every book needs a romance. It's fine. Now let's talk about my 5-star reads. I had 4 of them, which is so cool. It feels like a lot of 5-star reads for this month. And I think a lot of that stems from participating in Battleathon and trying to read my 5-star predictions. And overall, they pretty much worked. The first 5-star book that I want to talk to you about is Teach Me by Olivia Day. This was the group book for Rom-Comathon, so you can hear my in-depth thoughts in that vlog. But this was so cute. Listen, we love a golden retriever man. We love him. He's a cinnamon roll. He's fantastic. And we love a grumpy woman sometimes. Or not necessarily, she's not really a grumpy woman. She's just like a badass, knows who she is, and she knows her worth. And I love that. This is about 2 teachers. So he is the new teacher to this school, and he is given her favorite class to teach. And she's a little bit upset about it, and she wants to hate him.
Just because I have to work with you doesn't mean I want to hear your voice.
She wants to get him to leave the school at first, but like she can't because he's so nice and he cares for the kids so much, and he cares for her too. He has a high school senior as a daughter, so it's another single dad trope, which, like, as you know, I love that. This also has a lot of good conversation and commentary about the school systems in general, specifically schools in the United States, and how underfunded they are, overcrowded they are, how much the teachers have to do on their own dime and their own time. And like, you know, there's this one time where they are building gift baskets for the students who are going to go take tests. So they're making sure that they have breakfast and they have extra pencils and stuff like that. And she says something like, a lot of kids won't try to get free meals, or like won't sign up for free meals because of a pride thing. She was on welfare as a kid, so she understands that point of pride of not wanting to sign up for the free meals at school. And so she's like, I can't feed my kids every day, but I'm gonna make sure that they have breakfast on the day that they have to take their state test. And it was just so beautiful. These 2 people really care about their kids, and you know that they were great teachers. This is also a book where the main characters are both in their 40s. I believe she's 42 and he's 45 maybe? Question mark. Don't quote me on that. So it was kind of interesting to read like 2 Gen X romances in the same month, or the same week really even. And they did it in very different ways. Like this one did not focus on the fact that they were in their 40s, whereas in role playing, the age really played a main factor in the story. But it was a nice change of pace. The next one was one of the first books that I read all month, and also potentially one of my favorite Darcy Coates books, and that is the F Croft Ghost. I did not expect to love this one as much as I did, because I really haven't heard a lot of people talk about this one as much as they talk about Voices in the Snow or Gallows Hill or From Below. Like this is one of her least popular ones, or less popular ones anyways. This is actually a YA story, but my god, it is spooky. Like, we love creepy grandparents. They're so much fun. This is about 2 kids who have to go to their grandparents' house because their mom is in a car accident and like cannot take care of them. And so in order to get CPS off of their back, they go to their grandparents' house in the middle of nowhere. They are cut off from the internet, from their phone, and the other people in the town are weird, which I love. It's a weird trope in horror that I love, when like the townspeople cannot be trusted. And that's about all I can tell you from here. It's a weird family history, family legacy, genealogy. It's a good time. This was spooky. This was creepy. If you're looking for a quick book to read to start off spooky system, might I recommend this. It's on Scribd. The audiobook I think was like 5 or 6 hours long, and it was a good time. Highly recommend this one. Another horror that I really loved was Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. No one had this one on their 2023 bingo card. No one. Okay, Chuck Tingle is the one who makes funny, erotic, like social commentary. Like, made a Harry Potter one but with a trans main character. They're not known for their like poignant social commentary in a real and authentic way. Most of it is all satire. This was so good. I read this on sprints with Cal over at Retrieving Books. I will link the sprints up down below or up above. In you can kind of see our real-time thoughts and feelings about this one, but this was so good. Specifically if you are deconstructing from any sect of Christianity, I highly recommend this book because there is so much religious trauma that's unpacked. There's no way Chuck Tingle was not an evangelical Christian at some point, or possibly a Mormon, I don't know, but there is so much deconstructing in this book and it is fantastic. There's not a lot I can tell you about this book without like spoiling it, but like it's a camp where they send their kids who are gay. It's a gay conversion camp. It's touted as the most effective, most successful gay conversion camp in the country, and everyone is a little suspicious. The parents are really messed up, and also there are demons. So if you want a really campy book to start spooky season, this might be a good one for you. Lastly, my favorite book of the month, the book I will not stop shouting about, and the book that will definitely make my best books of the year, and that is Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner. This is soccer gays. This is Ted Lasso but make it gay. This is about Grace and Phoebe, and Grace has been the captain of the national team. She's been captain of her club team, which is like the professional soccer team, for years, and then this new kid on the block, Phoebe, gets drafted and she's supposed to be the rising star. There's a lot of tension even from the very beginning. She bets that she can beat Grace in a drill, and if not, then she owes her a kiss, something like that. And then they start kind of a secret relationship. It's kind of adorable. There is undiagnosed ADHD rep in here, which I have never seen in a book before, and it was done so fantastically. I've never been more seen in a book. The rejection sensitivity dysphoria is real, let me tell you. There's a point where Grace kind of stops talking to Phoebe. She's kind of mad at her for something, and Phoebe goes over to her house and she says, nope, we are not doing this. We're gonna talk about this. Are you mad at me? We're going to talk this out. And it was just wonderful. I cannot recommend this book enough. You need to pick it up. Those are the books that I read in the month of September. Let me know your favorite book from the month. And if you're not feeling chatty, do a soccer ball emoji. That is all I have for you today. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.